I should pop out the chat. Now, I've done a couple of recording tests, and I know that when I whisper, sometimes I put a little bass in where there shouldn't be any bass, so I'm going to try to avoid that as best I can. But if you hear a little bit of bass from my voice, like I think I just did there, I know how audible that is, and I'm going to try to avoid doing it. It is really hard to avoid doing that. So God help me. And given what I'm going to be reading, I don't have confidence that he will. Anyways, let's see if we can pop out chat and stick it. Oh, whoa, okay. Yeah, it got a little bit handsy there. No, thank you, sir. I think I would like this there. Nope, it won't go that tiny, so I'm not going to have it popped out. We're just going to have it normal size chat. That'll be fine, that's fine. That will be great. Better than fine, it's great. Okay, so this is my first time doing an ASMR type of live stream. I'm just going with the flow with it. In my initial tests, whispering sounded better than straight talking. However, I'm gonna have to see how that goes. And anybody out there who is bothered by the way I'm talking, please let me know. And I can change anything about this. This is a test for me. It's can be fun. So we have SCP. And what I figure is we'll just go ahead and read just an SCP that looks interesting to me. Suspiciously clean goat. That does sound interesting. Daniel Ghoststone. The accidental car in this magazine. Memory replacing disc. Cordless headphones. Perhaps cordless headphones. One of my favorite pieces of technology are my Sennheiser cordless headphones. Let us see what this is about. Oh, it's a short one. SCP-1090. Object Class Safe. Special Containment Procedures. The item is currently kept in a generic headphone case and can be safely stored alongside similarly contained items. Storage near non-anomalous listening devices is not recommended. The item may only be removed for approved testing. Description: SCP-1090 has the appearance of a set of cordless headphones. Two irregularly shaped, highly polished stones, superficially resembling black basalt, are attached in place of conventional earpieces. The headband is white with flexible joints, allowing for size adjustment. A blue dot marked with a white L and a red dot marked with a white R are visible on the swivel joints at either end, presumably indicating left and right. It is unclear how the stones have been fused to the rest of the device, and both headband and earpieces have proven resistant to conventional cutting tools. Results from radiography of the object have been inconclusive. When a subject places SCP-1090 over the ears in the fashion of conventional headphones, they report hearing music or distinctive sounds. This music ranges from simple melodies to paranormal auditory experiences. The device has no anomalous effect on individuals who simply touch or handle it. I'm sorry I lost my place. The device has no anomalous effect on individuals who simply touch or handle it. Reports indicate that the stones remain oddly cool to the touch. I live near a road, so that may happen from time to time. It is 3:30 a.m., so it should not happen that frequently. Thank God. Testing suggests that the longer an individual is exposed to SCP-1090, the more unusual and lasting the psychological and sensory after effects. The upper limit of exposure before permanent psychological and sensory damage has yet to be determined. New researchers are cautioned to increase the time of exposure by no more than seconds. See Dr. Rice for a proposed algorithm. As the sounds reported are so far unique to the subject wearing the device, researchers are encouraged to review experiment logs with Series 1 for details. Let's go ahead and look at experiment logs Series 1 because I have no idea what. This is my first time reading SCPs. A lot of firsts. Today, first ASMR stream. First time doing ASMR really. And first time really trying to dive into, oh boy, dive into SCP. Series 1 logs describe the initial series of experiments conducted by Dr. Classified for ongoing experiments and data contributed by other researchers. See Series 2. Log, I'm assuming January 2nd. Procedure. Subject is seated in a soundproof room and instructed to place SCP-1090 over her ears, removing it when signaled by a red light. Duration, 2 minutes. Subject looked surprised upon placing the device over her ears, but made no attempt to remove it. She appeared to be focusing intently and failed to react to the flashing red light until 10 additional seconds had passed. Subject seemed ill at ease when questioned about the experience, possibly simple nervousness. Subject described clear and pervasive music, which seemed to be playing before I put them on. It sounded like the middle of the song. The song... I just remembered it. Can I mute? I just have to disable the alert box in case anybody follows. She appeared to be focusing intently and failed to react. Shit, I lost my place. No. I was worried about a sound being super loud when I'm whispering, and I feel like that's a valid concern, and I'm doing a service by thinking about such things. I wonder if, is that ASMR? Does that do anything? I wonder. Alright. Let's take a look at a different one. Let us see if maybe they have top rated new pages. Oh god, that's bright. Oh Jesus Christ. No. Let me turn that off for a second. Alright, this is one of the top rated as of late. SCP-5832, Object Class Safe. Special Containment Procedures. A Foundation front company has purchased the building containing SCP-5832 and falsely classified it as condemned to discourage trespassing. A simple guard is to be stationed on location to ensure security. The entrance to SCP-5832 is to be monitored via remote surveillance. Description: SCP-5832 is an apartment consisting of a hallway with two opposing rooms at its end. Those who enter the area are entirely unable to vocalize, "Hey, what's up? I'm headed to bed. I discovered you can get a lot of money from Mr. Allen's at nighttime, so I was just grinding some of that out. Good luck on your stream. Thanks, man." This is a first for me, doing ASMR, so yeah, we'll try it. Hi, Brendan. How are you? Oh god, where was I? I like this one so far, though. Those who enter the area are entirely unable to vocalize. Other deliberately generated forms of noise, like clapping or playing an instrument, are possible, and other sounds are not affected. Evidence suggests that the anomaly was at one time inhabited, though the apartment seems to not have been entered for at least 2 years. A small metal placard under the apartment number reads, "Department of Abnormalities." The leftmost room appears to be a child's bedroom, painted pink. The paint has no anomalous properties but dangerous amounts of lead. But contains dangerous amounts of lead and is peeled heavily. I'm whispering and I don't know how to change the volume of the alerts, and it could have been a nightmare. So, thank you. The contents of the left... That was a helicopter. Ooh, spooky. The contents of the leftmost room are listed below. A Crayola 16-pack of crayons and a Disney princess coloring book. It is completed normally. Save all that images from Prince Adam of Beauty and the Beast have been colored over and scratched out using a red crayon. The red crayon has not been used anywhere else in the book. A Webkinz plush black Labrador retriever. In several places, fur was crusted over with an unknown substance. A Nintendo DS and a cartridge for Animal Crossing Wild World. The game was functional in all aspects, save that when an NPC was engaged in conversation, no dialogue would appear in the resulting bubble. The player character's personal commentary on achievements or actions was also missing. Other text was not affected, based on the presence of certain time-locked features in the game. It had been played continuously for at least 9 months. A white wooden dresser. The contents of the dresser include a charm bracelet with 1 attached charm, a birthday cake with 7 candles. Also found inside were several opened and partly emptied packages of pull-up disposable training pants, and 3 identical Disney Princess t-shirts in a child's medium size. All 3 shirts are heavily stained. I might switch to something else because I don't know, it's getting low. I feel like I want more creepypasta stuff, I want something that scares me. Let me find something that scares me. Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay. Whoa, spooky. Let's see. Let's just change the spooky. Allow me to whisper. I'm trying to change the title to get SCP out because I think I'm just going to search for some creepypastas. Allow me to whisper spooky. Let's just say nothing. Alright. Let's see if we can find a source for some terrifying creepypastas. Actually, if I put creepypasta in the title, that's probably good. Creepypasta, not screepypasta. I want creepypasta. Sorry, Brendan. I'm pivoting my stream because SCP was a little bit harder to get into. I'm interested in it. It's probably something I'm going to have to read on my own and not out loud on a stream. Is creepypasta one word? It is. that's in response to. I'm very sorry. Alright, is encyclopedia creepypasta? That's the first result. Let's see. Well, let's take a look at this. Shall we? Shall we? Oh, jeez. Let's see. How do you... The creepypasta. Wait. Okay, so maybe creepypasta wiki. Ooh, pasta of the month. Here we go. Here we go. You have to ask if creepypasta is one word. Got it. But turns out it's two separate words. Is it? No, it's one word. Look at that. Creepypasta. Creepypasta wiki. Just one. Alright. Mist Man. April 8th, 2019. Wow, this was... Wait, when the hell was that? That was like a few days ago, right? But Grammarly underlined creepypasta. Yeah. I mean, Grammarly, is it gonna work for creepypasta? I mean, internet words, you know, they're exceptions. 1 year ago, honey. God damn it. Fuck. Oh, God. Yeah, okay. You got me. It's 2020. I get it. God, that's the worst. I totally saw 2019. I'm like, oh yeah, that's like a few days ago. Case can't do math, shut the fuck up. April 8th, 2019. 1 year and 3 days. I don't have a calendar easily accessible. I'll start with this. A very simple point. If I stop posting, then something has happened. I might disappear. But should I get the thing off screen? Do you think it's better with it off or on? What do you think, Brendan? I need input. Also, does this look good? Like my black background and lighting. Getting off and stare into the camera. I will try to stare into the camera as much as I can, but you have to understand that I also have to read. And I tried a whole thing where I held the camera the whole time to add a little bit of spook to it, right? And I had the camera just a little bit underneath the words, but it's hard to show you how that works because I have it on a tripod now. But it was oh, okay, I'll try. Nope, I can't do it with the tripod. Oh, no, I can if I just take it off. So I had the webcam on a little was like holding it, and I was like, who knows? Maybe during your reading, you might see the police accounts that have proven my innocence. I guess people need someone to blame, though. Hence why I see so many comments online putting me at fault for Jake's death. What do you think about that? I think stationary camera's okay, yeah. It was more wobbly just now than it was earlier. I even tried to get it on like a gimbal, which kind of worked, but it was also like buzzing. Just looks like POV topping. What the fuck are you talking? Wait. Oh my god. It kind of does, doesn't it? Alright. There we go. Here we go. I'll start this with a very simple point. If I stop posting, then something has happened. I might disappear, but I'm going to make damn sure it's not without a trace. A lot of people have been getting the story wrong lately, and if these are my last words, then I want them to be the truth behind that night. One of my ancestors was known to have been accused of similar crimes, but his words were lost to time. That's why I'm posting this online, so that is never lost, and so that my words can reach a wider audience. I should give a little personal information, so that should something indeed happen, you guys can link it back to this. My name is Mallory, and I live in a coastal town in Nova Scotia, Canada. That's about all you need. Some of you might already know who I am and where I live just based on that alone. As for the rest, I'll let you do the minimal work it takes to find articles about the murder to figure out where I am. If you're that determined to hold a protest calling for my imprisonment or whatever on my front lawn, then you can do a bit of research. Who knows? Maybe during your reading you might see the police accounts that have proven my innocence. I guess people need someone to blame, though. Hence why I see so many comments online putting me at fault for Jake's death. And yes, after I tell my story here, you might even be further convinced that I killed Jake. But I won't get anywhere by just saying I didn't do it. So here goes nothing. Jake McLeod was my best friend. I don't mean that in the mournful eulogy way that people talk at a funeral. He truly was my closest friend. We met way back in grade school and have had each other's backs ever since. After graduation, we both found jobs within town. Jake at a gas station and myself at a fast food place. Jake always liked cars and working around them, so he was content with his job. As for myself, I didn't really know what to do with my life yet, so the fast food joint was better than nothing. At least I got to know the locals, which was nice. March 27th. It was a cold Sunday night. Typically we would go out on a Saturday to the bar for some drinks and billiards, but Jake hadn't been feeling well Saturday and I had to work an extra shift. So we decided to meet up the next night instead and suffer the consequences come Monday morning. I would have been fine with meeting up next week and just skipping this one, but Jake said that he really wanted to talk about something, so I agreed. So there we were, in the bar, sipping beer and knocking balls in holes. The dizzying noise of bar chatter and bad radio music in the background. After having lost my 5th game of the night, Jake called for a break. We took a seat in a booth, and after a few moments, he decided to finally level with me. "Mallory," he said, "I'm leaving town." He told me that he had just been offered a new job out of town as a mechanic. His girlfriend was planning to move to the area as well for her own schooling, so it was a win-win for them. Unfortunately, the place was not a 15-minute drive away, meaning that it would become harder for us to hang out, and he was leaving within the week. It hurt a bit, since almost every other friend I had left already. Since almost every other friend I had left already moved away too. But I understood how much this meant to him. Jake loved cars, so this was a big step up for him, and I couldn't let myself get in the way. Besides, this was the 21st century. We could still easily keep in touch, but breaking this tradition of weekend pool nights was definitely saddening. He could tell it upset me a bit and brought me another beer, but I smiled and told him it was alright. We stayed there for a bit longer, played one more game, and he left. It was about midnight by the time we left the bar. Since it wasn't too far, we chose to take a short walk along the waterfront. Winters are long and annoying here in the Maritimes, so there were still a few chunks of ice floating in the harbor. The sidewalks were slippery still, some spots covered in treacherous black ice, others holding the dirty mountains of snow still melting away. The waterfront was empty, so in our addled states, under the light of the street lamps, we laughed and joked for no reason. Now we were passing by one of the piles of snow, and I decided it would be funny to start some 30-second fight with Jake. So I chuckled to myself. I stumbled forward and reached for the cold, moldable solid and called out to Jake, "Hey, Jake." He didn't respond, so I figured he just wasn't paying attention. "Jake." I had the snowball formed as I asked again. No answer again. He didn't even say yeah or what, as I was hoping he would, so I turned and prepared to throw the snowball. I received a kick in the face in response. I didn't know what had hit me at the time, but regardless, it was hard. Already teetering, my foot hit a patch of black ice, and the next thing I knew, I was on my back. There was a loud thud as my head slammed against the cement, pain enveloping my head like a mother swaddles her child. Dazed, I reached back and touched my skull. It was leaking, just so slightly, leaving my fingertip stained red. As my eyes fluttered, I finally noticed that the streak light, I finally finally noticed that the streetlight had been blocked by a form. Focusing on it, I was able to discern who it was, and my heart felt like it had fallen from a great height. Jake was hanging from the streetlight, and it was his flailing foot that had kicked me as he struggled to break free. I lied there on the cold pavement, watching the life drain from my friend as he was choked to death before me. My body wouldn't respond to any panicked prompting, and my vision continued to fade in and out. So all I could do was witness Jake McLeod's last moments of fighting, then twitching before he finally went limp, drifting in the evening air like a wind chime. Tears welled in my eyes, making it even more difficult to tell what was happening, and between fits of blubbering, I tried to call Jake's name. He wouldn't answer. He couldn't answer. My gaze was then averted to what was holding him up. It was a strange cord of bright white color, almost like its interior was filled with Christmas lights. Many thorns stuck out along the sides of the rope, and I could see the dark lines along his neck where the blood raced when they had pierced him. His face, though now lifeless, was frozen in place, still holding all of the last emotions that raced through his mind before death overtook him. Fear, sadness, but most of all, desire. A desire to live. There was no knot or noose of any noticeable sort to break his neck. It was simply slung around his neck to make him suffocate. His hands were still clasped around the rope, as though they could still at any moment free him from this travesty and save his life. But it was not to be. Instead, I was there. I was to stay there on the sidewalk with my best friend, now swinging from a lamppost. Then, and only then, my spine shook as a thought occurred. I looked around anxiously from my position on the ground, trying to find the perpetrator of the act, before I met the same fate, or worse. My heart's... I read that with the wrong inclination. I looked around anxiously from my position on the ground, trying to find the perpetrator of this act before I met the same fate, or worse. My eyes darted up and down and left and right, but without being able to move my head ocean came the ghastly face of a man. It glowed almost like the rope, white like sea foam and cold as the ocean, but wispy and translucent. He looked to be in his mid-30s, but I couldn't discern any real features to identify him. Everything on his face kept shifting eerily. His eyes frightened me the most, or what appeared to be lack thereof. Then, slowly but surely, a closed-lipped smile formed on his haunting face, and it continued to grow, larger than should be possible, and yet his lips stayed tucked together. That uncanny smile as his eyes burrowed into mine. It's an image that it burned into my memory, right between many images of Jake's swaying corpse. I tried to utter a question, demand anything. Why, who, what, but no words left my lips. And though I was thoroughly traumatized, the man simply stood up, turned, and began to walk past Jake, coattails flapping in the wind, before vanishing on the spot. That's when I was finally able to scream. The night air was cold. It found the cracks in my jacket defenses and began setting upon me without mercy. I continued crying out for someone, anyone, to come to our aid, but no one came. I didn't want to look at Jake, but there were no stars to see on that cloudy. I have a Chrome extension that changes the word cloud to butt. God, now I lost my place. Look at that. I didn't want to look at Jake, but there were no stars to see on that cloudy March Eve, so I was forced to think back through all our memories together as my weariness overcame me. The next thing I can remember is the different feeling against the back of my head. It was soft and comfortable, and of course I realized soon enough that it was a pillow. But it wasn't my own. You all know how recognizable one's bed is. So the moment I knew this wasn't my bed, I shot awake. And the pain came searing back as I was blinded by a white blur. Jesus fuck. Memories of the murderer's face raced through my spinning mind, but once I'd calmed down, I was able to make out where I was. It was the local hospital. My parents were quite tearful and relieved to see me awake. There was a lot of hugging and crying and, yeah, that kind of mess. But the celebrations now had to be put on hold. Now that I was awake, after what I was told was a 3-day sleep, the doctors wanted to speak with me. The police as well. I immediately asked about Jake, with a slim hope that he may have just been knocked out. officers wanted me to answer their questions first. I told them everything I just mentioned. The night at the bar, walking on the waterfront, being kicked in the face and falling down, watching Jake's body flail around, and finally the misty-faced man smiling down on me before disappearing. Once I had finished telling my side of things, one of the officers coughed and asked if I was certain about the hanging. I shouted at them that I was dead certain. How could I not be? That image was burrowed into my brain. Then the cop looked at me in the eye and replied, "We found no rope or anything of the sort at the crime scene. Jacob MacLeod was found dead on the ground next to you with several lacerations around his throat. Small but deep." The tornado returned to my brain and began to scramble my thoughts. The officer asked if the man had perhaps taken the rope away with him, but I clearly remembered him disappearing and leaving Jake up there. They just repeated that he was found lying on the sidewalk next to me, and the light layer of snow beginning to build up on top of both of us. From the way he was positioned, they were also able to discern that he hadn't fallen from that kind of height, but just went there from standing level to the ground. I asked how we were found. The bar closed about an hour after we left, and one young couple had been visiting the area and decided to have a romantic stroll around in the snow along the waterfront. Then they bumped into the two dead bodies on the ground. Well, one nearly dead and one certainly dead. And they called 911. Services didn't arrive until after I was unconscious, so the officers suspected that the killer may have returned to collect the rope for whatever reason. As for the misty appearance of the suspect in the rope, they chalked it up to alcohol. Something brain injury. They didn't doubt my story, save the whole rope thing, and figured that the subject must have thought he succeeded in getting us both. The doctor told me I had received a concussion and that I'd have to stay with them for a few more days before they'd let me go, since I hit my head pretty hard. So, about a week later, and after some more tests, I was released from the hospital and sent home. I just crawled back into bed, depressed by the loss of my friend and terrified that the killer might spot me and try to finish the job. Rumors began to circulate. They thought I didn't want Jake to move away for some insane reason and took the most drastic measure to stop him from leaving. Really? Like, seriously? How does that even sound remotely logical to you? But emotion overwhelms rationality, I suppose. And so those that grieved for Jake pointed a finger of blame to me, either for committing the act or not helping prevent it. But I know what happened. They thought that I didn't want Jake to move away for... Oh, no. Wrong paragraph. But I know what happened. I know what I saw was real. That misty-faced man, the thorn-covered rope, their ghastly appearances, pieces of their forms wispy and flowing in the winds like strands of hair, that cruel stare, that malice-ridden smile. There was nothing earthly about that man. I don't know who or what the hell he was, but that was not a living person before me that night. My blood ran cold when his eyes poured into mine, in a way I've never experienced before. No man could strike fear like that into someone's heart, and no man could simply be extinguished on the spot, just to vanish into the wind. And if my fears are correct, then it's likely he knows that I live, either through some sixth sense that the undead possess, or perhaps he keeps up to date with the local news. It could have been a hallucination, sure, but either way I doubt he'll want to keep me around for much longer. I'll keep updating this blog with more information regarding the case, if I'm still around to do so. If not, then this has been the truth. Goodbye. Did they ever update? Let's see. Oh, look at that. So that was April 8th. Let me read you some of the comments. Marco Polo says, "Bruh, this is so bullshit. Stop with the creepy nonsense and just confess." Mary Oswell says, "Danielle, this isn't funny. First you murder your best friend, then you make up this ridiculous story to explain it all. You killed my boyfriend, you sick asshole. I can't wait to see your ass in prison." Morgan K96 says, "I'm sorry to hear that, man. I can't imagine how terrifying that was. Look, we should meet up and hang out sometime. It's been weeks since I've seen you, buddy." Morgan. Yachts and Thoughts says, "Yeah, this guy's so full of shit. Either he did it, or he's trying to get clout by making a horror story out of his friend's death. Guy's fucked." Oh, thank you for following, guys. Somnium says, "I heard a lot of rumors about this case, so I decided to look more into it. Everything Mallory says here lines up with police reports and such, so I believe him. Stay safe, man. That guy could be anywhere." Creepy Stories for the Dark says, "Love this story, man. Mind if I narrate it on my channel? I'll give you full credit. Oh my god, it's too real." If I didn't ask for permission, that can be bad for me. Thank you for following Kiran and Golden Yitim. Update. April 19th, 2019. Thank you for following me, Easy Face. April 19th, 2019. He came back, and I don't know what to do now. I'm just going to assume you've read my first post, since I don't want to relive those memories right now. Not with everything that's happened. And it's a waste of time. Also, thank you to Mary for just throwing my name out there, despite my desire to stay somewhat anonymous. And I'm sorry. was curious, I've already deleted the comment, so yeah. I didn't attend Jake's funeral. I got a lot of reprimand for that, but I was terrified for some reason that his killer would be there, getting some kick out of watching his victim being lowered into the earth. I didn't leave the house for a good week, cowering under my sheets and reading the responses to the first blog. I would only leave my room to get food or use the bathroom, only to return quickly to the bed and mindlessly watch YouTube videos to take my mind off things. My parents checked on me daily, but they mostly left me to my own devices. They figured that this was just a coping mechanism. The police continued investigating to an extent, but with no real leads to go on. Things were moving slowly. I attempted to do research about that thing, the Mist Man, but every time I tried, those damned images would fill my mind. First Jake, then the smile, and Jake again. Then, akin to holding one's breath and running through a cemetery, I managed to swiftly enter a search result. Misty, ghost killer. I wasn't really expecting much, nor should I have been. And naturally, it didn't return any relevant information, just a bunch of spooky ghost stories for me to indulge in and haunt myself even more. Should I choose to? I avoided them like the plague. It stormed one night, one of the first heavy spring rains. The wind rattled against my shutters all night long, forcing me to stay awake in case he showed up, even if there's only one knock, just to fuck with me some more. Not that my sleep schedule wasn't already ruined, and so I stayed there, locked away in my room by my own doing, Swiss Army knife always in hand should the Mist Man come for me. I only left the house one other time before the second incident. Hey, thanks for the raid. You jumped in the middle of a story, but thanks. Welcome, Raiders. I'm doing good, J-Dragon. Trying out some ASMR. You're jumping in the middle of a creepypasta, so enjoy. I'm also not consistently talking to chat this time, which is unusual for me, so every now and again, I'll jump back into chat. Hello, Spectre. Alright, where the hell was I? It stormed one night, one of the first heavy spring rains. The wind rattled against my shutters all night long, forcing me to stay awake in case he showed up, even if it was only one knock, just to fuck with me some more. Not that my sleep schedule wasn't already ruined, and so I stayed there, locked away in my room by my own doing, Swiss Army knife always in hand should the Mist Man come for me. I only left the house one other time before the second incident, and that was for a doctor's appointment. Just some basic stuff, checking on how I was doing, if my head felt funny, if I was coping well with losing my friend. The doc took notice in my reclusive behavior and said that if it and my mood continued for too long, alongside trying to contact me in every shape and form. I didn't respond because, again, no interest in going out in the open, thank you. But Morgan is the persistent type, and a few days ago he showed up at my door. Mom let him in, and he pretty well dragged me down the stairs to go outside. Lily was with him, another friend from school. Seeing her made me quite happy. I'll admit it now, yes, I had a crush on her for a bit, but never really did much about it and just tried to suppress those feelings after high school. As my behavior should tell, I'm not the bravest man on earth. Morgan and Lily had just come along to make me breathe some fresh air instead of the depressing stink of my 5th-day worn jeans. I mumbled something about being busy, but it was easily overpowered by Mom saying that it was a fantastic idea, which left me with no options. It wasn't a clear sunny day, but one of those days where the sky is covered in clouds ready to burst. I almost said butts. I saw it because my browser changed the word cloud to butts. The sky is covered in butts ready to burst. It's one of those days where the sky is covered in clouds ready to burst, and there's a light mist to the brisk morning air. So, sloppily pulling on my raincoat, I found my shoes and stumbled out to meet my old classmates. Now, Lily was in a lot of my classes over the years, but Morgan I only really got to know during the last year of high school. But that didn't stop us from bonding over online games and such. We made a great team, the three of us. God, Morgan seemed to be dealing with the loss far better than I, but he was also a really determined guy. He'd persevere through anything with a grin on his face. Lily was more timid and not much for talk, but she was still quite sweet when you did interact with her. We wandered into town and stopped by an ice cream parlor, where between comforting bites I retold them the painful story. Wandering on through town, our shoes clapped against the wet cement. It was nice being around other people again, but before long I'd grown distracted and didn't notice where we had ended up. We were back on the waterfront. Not on the same spot as before, but it was enough to strike my heart with anxiety. A hand on my back made me whirl around on the spot and nearly trip, scaring a shy Lily and friendly Morgan, whose hand was taken aback by my reaction. Good night, J-Dragon. Oh, Jesus, I lost my place. Come on, he replied. Let's go somewhere else. The sun stayed hidden, and the air stayed damp. We had passed the high school and were now strolling through the suburbs, passing along a large hedge. That's when Lily asked her first question since we met up. Do you really believe that Jake's killer is a ghost? I stopped for a moment. The air stayed... No. I stopped for a moment, beginning to doubt myself. It could have all been as the doctor described, just a hallucination in a high-stress situation, mixed with alcohol and hitting my head really hard. But that cold, that fear he put into me, that was real. I don't really know, was all I could say, because I truly didn't. And that was worse than having an answer, because I had no idea what to expect from the murderer. That's why I was frozen on the spot when Morgan's face exploded. Pieces of brain matter and blood splattered over my jacket sleeve. But my brain was caught off guard so hard that its wheels were spinning in mud. Lily's screams became muffled and distant as I tried to comprehend what was happening so I could react properly. But it took far too long. And as Morgan fell to the ground, out of my line of sight, I was greeted with a more horrific sight. The shining white barrel of a gun, with its entire body seemingly smoking from that one shot. Lily's touch finally broke me out of the trance, and I began to move in the direction she was pulling me. I was glad I got to hold her hand in that moment. It was a strange comfort. It was a strange comfort while trying to avoid being killed, but nothing good ever seems to last for me. Lily screamed again as she was jerked back, and when I turned, I saw the mist man's ghastly hand clutching her hair ferociously, refusing to let her escape. I told Spectre to raid you so we could make your night a bit better. Thank you so much, J Dragon. All gruesome in the morning. Thank you guys for the words, I appreciate it. I saw the mist man's ghastly hand clutching her hair ferociously, refusing to let her escape. Let her go, I howled, pulling on her hand as hard as I could, but it was for naught. I saw the purest form of shock and terror rip across her face as the fiend yanked her back and stuck her in the back with a knife. I kept pulling in a futile attempt to save her life, but Lily did not move. All she did was jerk and cry out as the man struggled to drag the knife up and through her body, only being able to do so by thrusting it upwards so far before having to thrust again. And when he couldn't cleave bone, he withdrew the knife and stepped away. Lily dropped into my arms, and I held her as I kneeled on the pavement. I watched the last pieces of her consciousness fade away, and her eyes elicited the same fleeting life that Jake's spasms contained. I had no words for her, only tears. courage to say I'm sorry or I love you. All I could do is cry out and take in the image of that face, her face, glancing at Morgan to mourn him as well. But he wasn't satisfied with just their lives. He wanted to burn me, to torture me. With the strength I never expected, he ripped my sweet Lily from my hands and swung his knife around her horribly, destroying any ounce of her former beauty in seconds, before letting her drop to the ground like a child bored of their rag doll. My brain screamed not to look. It wished to keep the memory of her face from only seconds before, but everything felt slow. I could not take my eyes off of her as the man took her from me. And so the mess of flesh and scars was my sight to behold. I sat there, bawling for the dead, before looking up and finally getting a look at my assailant. I had called him the Mist Man before, but to actually see him drove the name home evermore. His entire form was drifting and flowing, yet there was no wind on the road. He wore an old-fashioned trench coat similar to one a sailor might have, tattered and ripped in several places, yet swaying in the breeze like the retreating mists. The shoulder had parts standing up like sharpened spikes. Hanging from his side was an equally old flintlock pistol, the same gun that took Morgan's life. The knife rested in his hand, but it dripped not with crimson blood, but a fluid that matched the unholy white of his body. He had one of those sailor-style hats as well, the one shaped like a triangle. And it hid the top half of his face. Only upon lifting his face to greet me did I once again feel the unrelenting power of his stare and the cartoonish smile scrawled across his face. There was nothing left to do. Slowly I crawled back from the specter on my hands, keeping both eyes fixated on the creature, before scrambling to my feet and sprinting for my life, screaming through the neighborhood for someone to help. My eyes were blurred by tears, so I nearly ran down the first person I ran into, an older man walking his dog. I grasped his arm shakily and pointed down the road, telling him about the Mist Man and what he had done. The guy craned his neck down the road and his eyes widening before answering. "Oh shit! Come on, he's coming!" I did not want to look behind me, out of fear that I'd freeze up yet again. I just listened and followed the fellow who I later learned was named Gary, to his house. Gary locked the door behind him and told me to go down the hall into the kitchen and call the police. As I did so, I could hear Gary rushing between rooms upstairs, and just as I had finished explaining the situation to the police, he returned. In his hand was his own rifle. What kind, I have no idea, but seeing it both frightened and reassured me that I'd be all right here. Gary asked for the phone, and I the situation to the police as well, saying how we were in his home at this address, and we had locked the doors and closed the curtains. We were told to just stay on the line and wait for the police cruiser to arrive. The ensuing wait was one of the longest and quietest waits of my life. I nearly had a heart attack when the operator asked if we were still online. Other than the occasional yes or no into the telephone and the ticking of the clock's pendulum, Gary and I waited in near complete silence, listening intently for any sounds of an intruder attempting to finish off the only two witnesses to his crime. In that time, though, the images of my dead friends ran on repeat, no matter how hard I tried to push them down and concentrate on here and now. Hey, one true villain, how are you? Now it's some Ku Klux Klan cult thing. I gotta go, work is calling. Nice catching you. Definitely be back. Alright, cool. Thank you for dropping by, Brendan. Bye. I think I picked a really long story to read for my first creepypasta to read in ASMR. Am I doing alright? Is it like sounding okay? I know I'm like breaking into like a little bass in my voice every now and again. I'm trying to stop that because I know it's probably distracting, but it's hard controlling your voice, you know. If you have any suggestions or anything, let me know. Where was I? God. It's 4:50, wow. Alright, let's go. Why am I doing an ASMR stream? Because I felt like it, man. Because I thought to myself, I should stream tonight, and I wanted to read some SCP stuff, and I was like, okay, well fuck it, I'm turning all the lights off. We can set up like lighting so like I'm lit but the background isn't, and I'm gonna get my mic real close and whisper and read stuff, and then the SCP stuff started getting kind of boring because I'd never read it and I don't know much about it, so I just started reading creepypasta. But I've always wanted to do ASMR stuff, so this is kind of like a weird little intro into that world. I'm probably gonna do more ASMR stuff in the future, but probably not creepypastas. I don't know. Maybe. With the sound of the siren approaching, the operator told us if SCP is my favorite game of vids. Yeah, I've never seen any. With the sound of a siren approaching, the operator told us that the police had arrived. I thanked her quietly as knocking could be heard. From the backyard, I swallowed and looked at Gary, whose face went flush like mine. We both turned and out the glass door patio. We saw him. There was another knock, now from the front door, and I screamed, "Help! He's in the back!" Gary put his rifle in the corner and pushed me to the front door, both of us scrambling along the way. I reached the lock and undid it, allowing the police to run through into the kitchen. I frantically pointed in the direction of the mist man, and they seemed to understand well enough. Gary and I were escorted over to the police cruisers, open to the curious eyes of the neighborhood. I could make out people standing in their living room windows, gawking at the scene. But it couldn't be more uncomfortable than the situation I was just in. They wanted to ask us some questions, of course. One of the officers had been there during my recovery at the hospital, so I was more reassured talking to her. I told her everything you've already read above, but unlike at the hospital, she wasn't so kind. A hint of doubt, but budded her eyes. A hint of doubt clouded her eyes, and every look she gave, each raised eyebrow, only made me worry. Then she asked to do a pat down. My heart finally sunk, but I agreed, thinking I was just overreacting to all of this, that everything was just going to be okay. I had forgotten about one crucial thing, though. My knife. Next thing I know, I'm being put under arrest for reasonable suspicion involving the murders on that street. Waiting in the interrogation room, my anxiety was only peaking. The only thing that kept me restrained and not lashing out wildly was that I was innocent. The Mallorys had a bad history for being falsely accused of crimes. My own dad was nearly thrown in jail for sexual assault against a woman he had never met. So it seemed like it was a genetic thing that we grow more restless and angry than the average person when this kind of thing happens. But I didn't have the same self-confidence as my predecessors. I was scared, terrified that I was going to be locked up after having to witness my 3 closest friends being executed by some demented maniac set on ruining my life. The cops eventually came in and began the questioning. We went in circles for a while, with little progress being made. When I asked about the real suspect, they told me that one officer had made chase, seeing his coattails leaping over a bush in Gary's backyard, but lost sight of him shortly after. They asked why I had a knife. I told them it was in case of situations like this. It was the truth, and I hoped it seemed reasonable enough. The interrogation continued, but there wasn't really any kind of confession they could get out of me. I knew what had happened, and Gary corroborated my story. He had seen the figure approaching, and when it knocked on the patio door, my knife had no traces of blood on it. And there were no guns around the scene of the crime that could have done the damage to Morgan's face, so they had no choice but to let me go. However, they stated that they were going to keep a close eye on me, both for my protection and others. I understood their concern and thanked them. On my way out, the female officer, whose name I finally learned, Riley, asked me a question. Mallory, is that the name I was thinking of? The whole folk legend name? Wait. Mallory, is that the name I'm thinking of? The whole folk legend name? I sighed. Yeah, it is. I suppose a quick history lesson is in order by now. The Mallorys came to my town near the beginning of the 1800s, but there was an old rumor that surrounded the first settlers of my family. Apparently back in Europe, wherever my family originated from, one of the brothers to the guy to first come over was executed for mass murder. There wasn't any proof of this event, but people still affirmed that it happened. My grandfather was into genealogy while he was still alive, and even he couldn't find anything about a Mallory committing such a crime in the history books. It was just a rumor, but it was one that made my family name look bad. Think of it like having a friend with the last name Hitler. Okay, maybe not that bad, but you get my point. Locally, we were the ones to watch out for. Hence, my childhood was made all the harder because of it. Parents would tell their kids to stay away from the Mallorys, that they caused bad times wherever they went. And so most kids either stayed away from me or bullied the hell out of me. Jake was the only friend I had growing up. And then later, Morgan and Lily hung around me too. Sorry, that was my phone. Anyways, now the police have their eyes set on me, and I've committed to staying in my room almost entirely. Back where I started, I suppose. Only with less. Jake, Morgan, Lily. People's trust in me, all gone. The Mallory name is starting to live up to its reputation. And that scares me. Comments. Somnium says, "This is getting really weird. You look into anything about malevolent ghost sightings?" Marco Polo says, "Holy shit, how's this dude still getting away with this? Why are you still writing this shit? Stop." Yachts and Thoughts says, "What an embarrassment to all the people this guy has killed. Unbelievable that his ass hasn't been mailed to prison yet." Juniper 69 says, "Wait a minute, guys. What if Gary helped with the murder? He had a gun and Mallory had a knife." Frederick Swan said, "You might want to go see a medium or some shit. If this really is some kind of ghost, from the description it sounds like something that came from the same era as your family members who settled in the area. Maybe there might be some truth to the rumors that you mentioned. As for those who are going to blast me for offering help, I only believe this with a grain of salt, but we should still offer help, just in the off chance it's real." Creeplord X says, "Wow, that was really scary. I don't think I can sleep." Renee H98 says, "Stop lying, you bastard. Turn yourself in." Mary Oswald says, "You fucking creep. How do you keep getting away with this?" Kid Serious 1408 says, "Fucking KYS liar at Somnium you too." That was April 19th. March 2nd. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I can't explain right now, but I promise too soon. Please believe me, I didn't do it. I'll tell my story soon, but you have to wait a bit. Comments. Marco Polo says, "What did he do now?" Mary Oswald says, "Turn yourself in, Daniel. There's no hiding it." Somnium says, "Oh God, I hope everything is okay." Juniper 69 says, "He slaughtered hospital patients." conscience, Jesus Christ. Marco Polo says, he murdered a lobby full of people. Killer Wiener says, this guy is seriously psycho. I hope the cops kill this son of a bitch. Qwerty Emint says, turn yourself in. Aquarius Mary 76 says, Mallory, you really need to see someone. Whether your mental health is degrading or there really is a spirit from the afterlife haunting you, you need help. Creeplord X says, oh my god, he really did it. It was on the news. I saw it with my dad. FBI Agent 69 says, bruh. Jeffrey Woods 007 says, turn yourself in. Oh my god, how much of this is there? Okay, it looks like they're shorter after this. Oh, why did I pick such a long one? I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep going. Because I'm really tired and I didn't think this would take this long. I'm only halfway done with this story. This is only half of it, man. I will go ahead and post a link in chat to this. If you want to continue reading it, I'm sorry, I just can't do it tonight. It's 5 o'clock. And I'm getting tired of whispering. I didn't know that was a thing. So apparently that's a thing now. There's the story. Sorry for only reading half of it. That was cool. I had 8 viewers in here for a minute. Apparently I wasn't good enough to keep them in, but you know. Alright. Whoever's left in my stream, thank you for watching. Leave follow if you're not followed already. And I will be streaming. I don't know if I'm gonna do this again. This was fun, but I don't know if I'll do it again. Can I do oh no. Oh no, it's a creepy hand. Wait, how do I try to make it seem like something's grabbing me from the darkness? I can't. Oh, if I just I want to do some kind of bit to end the everybody has a good night. Everybody stay safe. Everybody stay safe. Drop a follow. Okay, no, I was gonna try to get around my neck naturally, but I can't do this naturally.